really, just to sort of conclude my presentation, over the last 4 or 5 years, temporary traffic management in Ireland has come on leaps and bounds. The specifications put in place, the guidance put in place has been a great help. The standard of roadworks out there has been a lot better than it was certainly when I first came to the country some 6 or 7 years ago. So we've made great progress within the industry, but there is a hell of a long way to go as far as appreciates the standard of traffic management that is actually in situ on the road. And we can all help in that, be it local authorities, be it other road authorities, temporary traffic management providers, PPP providers and people like that, in ensuring that the traffic management is safe, it keeps the road worker safe, and it keeps the road user and the passing general public safe as well. Which brings me to a close for my own presentation. I'd like to welcome any questions from the floor now, if anybody has any. It's something that, for instance, in the UK has been used on contraflows, but with anchorage at specific points along the barrier there. I believe the anchorage would be a requirement, certainly in a contraflow situation. If there was a crash into the barrier and it deflected to the other lane, you could completely block the whole network, because you can't just move that barrier with your hands. You've got to get the people in to relieve the crash, to put the barrier back and things like that. So without the anchorage, and I don't know of too many barriers that don't require anchorage as a minimum specification, however they're placed, I would be against that, yes. Yes. Straight up. Okay. The question there for those that didn't hear it, just asked that on the start of the varieguard barrier there is often a chamfered piece, which some people call the take-off ramp, and it's exactly what, sorry, what's your name? Gerald was talking about there. That really should be, wherever possible, at a curved angle. Not too much of a curve, so maybe it takes out the whole lane, but it should be kind of offset and not set at a dead straight angle. And sometimes, for instance, hard shoulder works would be a typical instance where that may not be possible, because you've got to pull into the works past the barrier and you've very minimal room anyway. So it's really on a side-by-side basis, but where possible, a curved entrance to the barrier would be applicable. It's not curved, it curves naturally itself. Where it's actually put together, it will curve naturally and do the job. As many other barriers will as well. Delta block will do the same, and barrier guard and other things as well. So yeah, there should be a curve on it, but sometimes it isn't possible. And we had a case ourselves where a car actually went up the chamfer section as well. There's a question back there. Any further questions?
Similar to the first two, but you're trying to split traffic, instead of one lane or the other, so a particular point of terminal should be the launch ramp, or is it a common point of view, left or right?
Sorry, just bring that. In what respect? In what situation would you be splitting?
Splitting ahead of creating a safe zone, so that he can 100 meters, and that terminal though.
I suppose each provider of temporary traffic management will do it in a different way. One way I've used, which has been used in the UK, for instance, and we've adapted here, the terminal, the sort of take-off ramp, as some call it, would usually be the first part of the barrier there, and curving it where possible would be applicable again. And usually a row of a number of cones, maybe touching bases at the start of that, just to firmly highlight the start of that barrier as a more substantial area of the traffic management, is something that people adopt as well. So other than that, there's no specific product on the market or anything that does that for you. Any further questions?
Just in relation to Jim Carrey with the motorways, Chapter 8 allows for a kind of risk assessment approach to design and traffic management. And in theory, you could have 3 different contractors on the same stretch of road using 3 different layouts. I know there are layouts specified, but as an auditor, you find it very difficult to audit them. Are you auditing them through the plan that they've designed and submitted, or are you auditing them through generic layouts in Chapter 8?
Ideally, you're ordering them to the plan that's been submitted and approved. And there could be different situations where, via the pre-start meetings to works, exact Chapter 8 standards can't actually be followed, and you've had to tweak it in some way, shape or form. And that's essentially the paragraph that you're referring to there, which gives the designer of traffic management scope to not follow exactly the regulations and adjust where necessary via risk assessment becomes applicable. So yeah, it would be to the actual approved traffic management plan. I suppose as an auditor, that's something you should be looking for, not going out there with a copy of Chapter 8 and using that as a black and white document, because it isn't. It is a guideline. I know it's a directive from the Minister, but it's certainly not statutory law. So it should be to the actual plan that's been agreed by the authorities for that particular works, rather than the actual standards. Anything further? Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your attendance. Hope you're enjoying the rest of the show. And if anybody wants to discuss any of the services I've mentioned within the presentation, or discuss anything to do with temporary traffic management at all, I'll be on the CHM group stand, which is RE50, for the rest of the afternoon. And thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day.